Shh, don't tell anyone. But you're listening to the best kept business secret and his podcast, dedicated to helping you understand the successful business secrets that others don't want you to know, making no secret of success. Now, here's your host and quite possibly the best kept business secret anywhere, Mark Ford.
Hello again and welcome to your best kept business secret with me, your host, possibly your best kept business secret, Mark Ford. Hope you are well. Hope the week has been brilliant for you. Now, I've got a treat for you. I've got a real treat for you. Today we are going to have an interview with the mindset technician Croz Crossley. Now, for those that know me, you know that I like to talk. And when I get going, that's it. Well, for the next 30 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, you are possibly only going to hear me for about 45 seconds. Croz will talk the backside off a donkey because he's got so much knowledge, so many thoughts, so many strategies, so many ideas that he just can't help but keep giving you value bombs. And I'm telling you, in this interview, there is some massive value bombs. So, without further ado, let's get stuck into this value-driven conversation with the mindset technician, Croz Crossley. Croz Crossley is known as the mindset technician, and when I've said this to people, they think it's a mind, voodoo, jiggery, pokery, and hullabaloo. How bloody English were those last three words? But Croz was born in a time when things were totally different from the way we work today, and his memories from his early years open a very intriguing journey to people like us today. Being an entrepreneur, his experiences and observations from his own life in business are invaluable to any of us running a business right now. From being a hugely successful entrepreneur to having lost virtually everything at the age of 43, Croz sought out the knowledge to get back to where he's been before, except this time wiser for the experiences. Now, Croz was in a desperate place, and after having lost a multi-million-dollar company, he made some very crazy decisions to get back in 5 minutes what had taken him 25 years to get in the first place. He then came across a very little book written in 1910 that made everything so very clear and gave him the formula for getting his life and his business life back on track. With over 50 years of business experience and 25 years of studying what makes us tick, Croz is going to impart some of his knowledge and wisdom in a way that makes his message very fun but incredibly powerful. And to be fair to us, it's an unfair advantage for us young uns to listen to him and tap into his knowledge. It's just taken him over 50 odd years for him to get it, and for us only a few hours to understand and maybe use it. So give us 30 minutes and we will possibly change your mind about how success can really happen. So it's an absolute pleasure to introduce, live from South Africa in a car, oddly, my mentor and friend, Mr. Croz Crossley. How are you, Croz?
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Oh, I'm very, very well. Thank you so much for doing this, buddy. Thank you so much indeed. Right, let's get stuck into it. Give everybody that's listening a bit of a précis about what happened to you, because your story is you were a very, very successful businessman, and then it kind of just fell apart virtually overnight. So give us a little bit of a story to how that happened.
Well, I moved to Australia in 1988, full of the vigour of a 40-year-old entrepreneur. I was going to go and teach the Australians how to do business and give them a good run for their money. And what happened is we went there and we were told that because we were doing property at the time in England, and then my cousin, who was a builder, came up to me and said, "Croz, you can't do building here, renovations here, because you need a license." And I thought, oh God. So the first lesson was, I listened to what he said, but it was an urban myth. You don't need a license to do renovations. You need a license to build. So
I do like that. Your first lesson is almost like listening to your mate Dave down the pub.
That's it. Yeah.
They are people don't do that. It's never wise to mate Dave down the pub unless it's me, Croz. That's it, right?
That's it. Or alternatively, check information, I just thought it was coming from a good source. Anyway, so we set about, and for the first time in my life, I was sort of well cashed up when I went there, and I purchased a business that was a security company, and that did supplied bouncers, it supplied people for the Houses of Parliament, anything to do with security and monitored alarms and all that sort of thing. Anyway,
mate, this is your opportunity to name drop here. Name drop some of the famous people you were security for.
Oh well, we did Bon Jovi, Elton John, Billy Joel. I think Bowie we did in Sydney, but quite a few people. Rod Stewart. Quite a few people. So this is personal security.
This is a top-end security business, then, yeah.
Oh, it was turning over millions. It was a big time, yeah. And it was because when you think about it, it was exponential sort of payments, because we were selling hours, and we had 250 staff, sometimes up to 500 staff on, and it was just, it was big. To say it was small would be a thing. But anyway, as in everything that I did in business, I always tried to do it so that it would run with the least input from me. So I went about finding a young lad on the door and to build him up to run the business, to be operations manager. And I found a guy, and we did it, and I just did everything I could. I taught him everything I knew and put him on the board. And eventually I made him a director of the company, executive director of the company. And I thought that would be a good enough protection, but it wasn't. So as operations manager, he went to all the clients and offered to do everything for $1 an hour less, which, when you're talking about the money we're talking about, was a huge thing. But unfortunately, what he didn't realise, in some instances, we didn't even earn $1 an hour to get the business. But because it was so big, we just juggled everything together. So it comes as a bit of a shock when he realised that he wasn't actually, in some instances, taking enough to pay the bills. And not knowing that particular part of it was a bit dodgy for him. But in effect, he took the majority of the business. And left a small part which we sort of laboured on with for a bit, and that's another story for another day. But basically, overnight, I'd lost a huge business, an income, and everybody, until you actually sit and work it out properly, everyone goes, "Oh, you should have done this, or you should have done that." Yeah, I know what I should have done, but I was in a position where I'd fallen from a great height. My income had been turned off overnight. I was pretty substantial in other bits and pieces, but we had, obviously, with a company that size, bank overdrafts. We had bits and pieces to keep things running. We'd built a gym for the guys and all that sort of thing. So immediately, everybody, the banks heard that there was a problem. It was like a dog with a bone. They was all phone calls started almost immediately. "Oh, can we want our money back? We want this, that, and the other." Anyway, we had to sell everything, and we ended up with $250,000. Now, I thought I was.
Sounds a lot, but it's not. It's not when you're considering that.
Well, from where you've fallen. But the point is, this is another lesson, Mark. I should have reframed where I was, but I didn't. I looked at 250,000 as if I still had a multi-million-dollar business, and I thought it didn't represent anything. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I should have reframed and said, "Croz, you're now fucking skint. You've got 250 grand. It's a lot of money." Right? See the difference? That's only a difference. That's only a difference of how I'm actually looking at it. But it's called reframing. And every time in life that something changes, change what you are, because a lot of people, Mark, are trying to run their life today on a mindset that was created 10 years ago, and it doesn't serve you. You've always got to have that reality check and update where you are, because it's as soon as you do that, everything sort of starts slotting into place a bit better, because you're not, we've always dragging the rubbish around with us from the past and all the other bits and pieces, but it doesn't serve you. You've got to actually be living now. And you've got to make sure that the mindset that you've got is relevant to now.
So the story you've got right now, the lesson that you're imparting right now, for you to have learned that, it actually took you a few years after the collapse of this business to actually sort of like get that, because as I alluded to in the introduction, you were trying to get back everything that you'd spent 25 years grabbing,
building,
yeah, and then you were trying to get it back in 5 minutes. So sort of like, you know, when was the sudden realization about, you know, reframing is massively sort of like important to any entrepreneur, but how did you sort of like almost have that light bulb moment going, hang on, I'm running around like an idiot for
listen,
10 minutes.
This is the most difficult thing to impart. And I've got a client at the moment that for the first time in my life, I'm looking like I've got to let him go because he just won't grasp what's happening. He's been successful. He's now in a position where he's chasing everything and getting nothing. £100 to him 10 years ago, he wouldn't have got up and crossed the road to get it 10 years ago. Yet today, he sees the chance of earning 50 quid or 100 quid and he's chasing it. Do you understand the difference?
Yeah.
He's still using the mentality that he had 10 years ago today, right? But he's not using the mentality he had 10 years ago. He's reframed to his stress, where he's now chasing £100 as if it's the salvation. And I keep saying to him, listen, I've been there. You will never get any traction while you're stressed. Just imagine it. I used to call it being the wheel spin kid. Now, listen, you get these kids, they're out in the street and they drop the clutch on a powerful car and the wheels spin and there's dust and there's smoke and it's a bloody load of noise. But what's happening? They ain't going anywhere. So you go up, you tap on the window of the car and you say, wait, do yourself a favour, turn the engine off. Calm down. Now turn the engine on, right? Put the clutch in, put it in gear. Now let the clutch out slowly. What happens? Nice and calm, and you move along. So it's not about the energy expended. It's about how you control the energy expended. It's called efficient action as opposed to action. The wheel spin kid's taking loads of action, but getting nowhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So what the first thing that you've got to realise is to calm down. Now I know a lot of people listening to this, Mark, they'd be going, I'd get the bastard, I'd sue him, I'd take him through the courts. But don't worry, I thought of that. And I went and saw a very good friend of mine, a lawyer. And I said, I want to do him. And he sat down there, and he's a wise old bastard, and he put his glasses on the end of his Uber and he looked over the top of them like that. He said, Croz, I've got some good news and some bad news. I said, come on, give it to me. He said, well, the good news is, he said, you could not lose this case. Fiduciary duty, clever making him a director because fiduciary duty and all that. You couldn't lose it. He said, but my advice to you is get on with your life. No, no, I ain't doing that. He said, listen, anyone could take this case and muck you about for 7 or 8 years. I could do it and maybe muck you about for 12 years before it even got to court, right? You know, before you got a case, it'd be go to court, cancelled, all that sort of thing. I said, well, I don't matter. I want to do it. I want to nick it. He said, hang on a minute. You're actually banking on the fact that this geezer, this unscrupulous fella, is a good businessman. Because we can win the day, but he won't have no business left or whatever. And if he's got any brains, he's going to start diversifying and doing all that. Maybe sell the company. You can't stop him doing that. So you're going to end up with having nothing. And you've got 10 years. He said, but listen, as from today, just get on with your life. And at the end of 10 years, which is roughly the time it would have took to get a result, I guarantee you'll be in a better place. That was a big pill to swallow.
I was going to say, that's a huge pill, isn't it? It's almost like your natural instinct is revenge, go after it.
Well, of course it is.
You've got 10 years for it to come around, you know?
But the point is as well, Mark, when you seek counsel, don't seek counsel from a bloody idiot. Seek counsel from someone that you trust. I call it trust in the messenger. Now, if you go and ask someone for advice, that means you trust them. And you should take notice of what they say. If you don't, then you're a fool. I could have carried on. He said, well, if you want to carry on, give us 50 grand, we get things underway. Hang on, that's 20% of everything I got in the world. Right. So, I'm still giving it some thought, right? He said, right, and then what you got to do now for the next 10 years is you've got to work to go and get the money to sue him. Yet at the moment, any defence that he's doing is with your money, what he stole off you. And all of a sudden, all these things are going through my head. It was an hard pill to swallow, but eventually I didn't go ahead with any criminal case or anything, and I walked away. But the point is, once you've made a decision, right, this is another great lesson for you guys listening in. Once you've made a decision, okay, that's it. It's gone. It's done. Don't live with the decision, regretting it or whatever. I'd made that decision, and then consciously, right, I let it go. I let it go. That decision I've made. I still hated the geezer. I still had all that venom going through me, but I'd let the decision that I'd made go. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, because then the next part, one of the next parts of the story is that you bumped into him years later.
Many years later.
Yeah, tell us about that. Tell us how this, obviously the lessons that you've just been imparting actually do genuinely come true.
Yeah, that's correct. But let's just rewind a little bit, because for the story to work, I'd found this information after I'd made a few more mistakes through wheel spinning and trying to get back in 5 minutes, what it took me a long time. Eventually, as you say, I found the book, The Science of Getting Rich, and I studied that book in isolation of everything else. And this is one powerful thing here, Mark, that's a great lesson. I had read everything on business. I had been to seminars all around the world. I'd done everything on business. And all the time things were going well, it worked. The trouble I had was making it work when I was in trouble. Okay? So what I learned at that time was how to make personal development and all the other bits work when you're on the bones of your ass, when it's not happening. That's the power that I've got, because when you're in flow, everything works. It doesn't matter, because that's the perfect state that we all drive for. But the point is that you can never get into flow if you're in trouble. So I'd had all this information, so I studied, and as soon as I took notice of what was happening and I relaxed and allowed things to happen, I got back quite quickly to quite a good place. And so one of the things on that making things work again was forgiveness. And that was, I had to forgive this guy, which I tell you what, was as big a pill as not going ahead with the court case. I just found it so difficult, but I had to do it. I was told, because I sought counsel from someone that I trusted, and they said, Croz, you've got to let go. You've got to let go, because you're absolutely, everything that you're doing in life at the moment is centered around trying to get your own back on this guy and and what you're going to do to him. And it's wasted energy. So I forgave him. I even sent him a letter, Mark, telling him that I forgave him, which was a very, very difficult thing to do. But the minute I posted that letter, things started changing. Because in the morning I got up and went, oh, it's a nice day today, Val. What should we do today? Instead of getting up and saying, Val, do you know where my axe is? Or I'm going to chop that bastard's head off, right? So it was a different position in each morning, right? It all started making sense. So going back to Mike, so I had totally forgiven him, and then I bumped into him many years later, and he was quite a sad looking sort of person. I went up and I shook his hand and said, how you going, Mike? And he couldn't understand, he couldn't come to grips with it, because he hadn't been through the process I've been through, had he? No. He's still sort of wondering what's going on, because when he first done it, he thought I'd got a contract out on him, so he was like, so he's had all these years going on. And I said, how's things going? I said, would you like a drink? He said, yes, please. And anyway, so Val stood there talking to him. Well, all the things, Mark, that I had wished upon him, Hope you get cancer, you bastard. Hope this happens. Hope that happens. Well, when the catalogue of disasters that befell him, the business, needless to say, had just fell into your thing, and then some other company picked it up when it was on its knees. So he'd lost that. He was now back driving a truck, which was where I found him. Right, his wife ran off with his best mate. He caught her in his own bedroom with his best mate. She's run off. She nicked the house that he had. He got testicular cancer. So all these horrible things that I've been wishing on him happened, by default. Listen, and at the time, then I felt truly sorry for this guy because, whatever made him do it at the time, I don't know. Because the silly thing is, if he'd have come up to me and said, Croz, can I have the business? I'd have said, yeah, Mark, give us a bit out of it, and you can virtually have it, and I'll always be here for you. And I genuinely mean that, because listen, the last thing I love building businesses, but the last thing I want to do is run businesses, because they, all of a sudden you're on a treadmill. Every day is the same, really, isn't it? And so I always try and work out every business that I've ever had. Fortunately, I've had about a slot in every time to run them, which is good. But that was just me. I like extricating myself and building businesses and by doing that, they work without you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And then that allows you to get on. And that's where I learned the art of delegating and all this sort of thing, which is another powerful thing in business, because everyone in business thinks that no one else can do it as good as them. And yet, every single time I say to people, listen, look, sit down. I've got bad news for you. There's hundreds can do it better than you. Yeah, so don't worry. Right? So, and that's the art of delegating. But what we do, you see, we employ someone, and what we want to do, because we're so bloody good at it, we want to employ someone that's us, right? And then what we do is we say, right, do that, and then we look over their shoulder, and if they don't do it how we do it, we start whoa. So you never find the best of the person. The best way to employ someone, right, and delegate is you say, do it, and then comment on the result, right? Because they'll always get there. They might have made heavy weather of it, and you might be able to give them some advice on how to change that. But they will always get there, right? So, but what we do is we look over their shoulders. We might, and that's what happens. People employ someone to lighten the blow, but then they're looking over their shoulders doing their work, plus they've still got their own to do. So, and that's delegation. But the only way you learn about someone is you let them perform and then comment on the results. Greatest bit of advice you'll get for a long time is, if you're delegating, let them get on with it. Because everyone does things different. If we all just said, look, everyone listening today, listen, I'll meet you in Edinburgh Wednesday next week. Why I said Edinburgh, I ain't got a clue. But anyway, we'll meet you in Edinburgh.
Difference from South Africa.
Yeah. That's a Freudian slip. I'll meet you in Edinburgh Wednesday next week. Now, everyone listening, right, will be able to get to Edinburgh, won't they? They'll all make it. If it's in their interest, they'll all make it. And someone leaving from exactly the same place that I left from might come a different way, but he'll be there. And I'll say, well, you shouldn't have done that. The best way would have been to have gone on the M6 or whatever and and it would have cut out that, right? But he'd have got there. Yeah. He'd have made heavy weather of it, possibly. But then next time he does it, he's learned from you, and he says, yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, I wish I'd done that. And so delegating, comment on results. Don't try and employ someone who's a carbon copy of you, because you won't find them.
No, you're right.
And if you try and create them, you'll drive yourself mad, and even more, drive them mad.
See, this links in really quite nicely to what you said a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to sort of drag us back ever so slightly.
Yeah.
Is that obviously sort of like when the business was taken from you and Mike's running it and it's all going Pete Tong. I know we've talked about this, but I think it's a really valuable lesson for people that are listening. Why do you think it went Pete Tong? Effectively, he's got a business, he's got a ready-made business that's making money, and then he's finding himself in trouble. and I'm hoping you're going to give the right answer to the one that we always talk about. But why is it? Tell people why you think that from a position of a great height that he had such a great big tumble down to the rock bottom.
Well, because it's like winning the pools. If you're an idiot...
There's an 80s reference, mate. Nobody wins the pools nowadays.
Oh, the pools. Lotto. What is it called? What's it called? Lotto, okay. Right. But the thing is, if you are an idiot and you win the pools, all you are now is an idiot with money. Right? And the thing is, your default position being idiot, in no time flat, you will soon become an idiot with no money again. Right? So what he's done is he's skipped the steps. He's gone to the top. Now he's got no one to refer to, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone in the company knew what he had done, okay? Everything, because he started, well, it was the new company that he started in effect, if that makes sense, right? So there was a big wobble because a lot of people, you know, like the Houses of Parliament can't just go on with a new thing. So they went with like Chubb and someone else, you know. So the first thing that happened to him is it all started going a bit funny, but he hadn't been a business owner, right? He'd been an operations manager below a business owner. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, yeah.
And he skipped the steps, and you can't... Listen, in my head, is 50 years of skullduggery, ducking and diving, running businesses, making things work, trying to get hold of a few quid to pay this bill, nicking that from that company to put in that company. There's a wealth of experience. So when anything happens, there's nothing really shocks me anymore, and I've got the answer 9 times out of 10, maybe 9.9 times out of 10. I've got an answer, and a bloody good answer, from a big store of information, and most of it learnt, Mark, from things going wrong. Right? We very, very rarely learn things from things going right, because I say to people, what I learned sitting at the top of a big tower in a revolving restaurant drinking lovely wine and eating steaks, I didn't learn a lot. it was a great business thing, but there wasn't any great lessons in that, right? And these are all the things that I've learned over time. I say to people, look, and sometimes the lesson can't be learned by listening, because you always do. You know, however much you tell a kid, don't mind the fire, you'll burn, because burn don't mean nothing, right? Mind the fire, you'll burn, it'll hurt. It don't mean nothing until you actually touch the thing and burn yourself. Then you know what burn means, right?
Yeah.
And that's the lesson, right? So the lessons come, right? And there's sometimes I say to people, listen, don't do that. And don't try and get me to explain why I'm saying this, because it's took me 50 years to find out. But this is what I would do, okay? And then sometimes people fight that information, because a lot of this stuff doesn't make any sense. The last thing you want to hear, Mark, when you are in trouble, hovering 2 inches above the ground with steam coming out your ears and not a move in the world, is for some silly old grey-haired bastard coming up to you and saying, shh, calm down, relax. That's the last thing you want to hear, isn't it?
True, yeah. It is true. But actually, you know what? I'm going to that links in nicely, because there's a couple of things in your book. And if people want to go and grab the book, I'll put the links in the show notes. It's Croz's book, Tell Us Another, 7 Decades of Knowledge and Wisdom. And I've highlighted this because actually I wanted to talk about this. And I'm going to use a Croz quote, all right? Normally, I get my arse in my hands when people quote themselves, but because it's your book, you're allowed to do it, right? Yeah. But your quote in this, page 115, shows that I've got it in front of me. The busy man thinks that happiness will come to him in the future. The clever man knows that it can only be found now. To work and ignore family and friends, hoping that money earned now will somehow mend relationships in the future, is pure folly. Do you know what?
Precisely.
I think that's so powerful, in the fact that, you know, lots of people listening to this podcast, lots of people following me, lots of people that I bump into, we're all kind of like, you know, chasing success now. Has to happen now. And then when you turn around to them and say, when was the last day off you had? They'll sort of like say, oh, about, 6 months ago or something like that. Yeah. And they've forgotten about the fact they've got a wife, they've got kids, they've got a husband, and they've got kids or whatever. They've forgotten about that. So talk to us a little bit about, because obviously this is talking about mindset now, is that, you know, why we should be living more in the now than we should in the future.
It's the only, listen, it's the only thing that you've got control over. And without going too deep, the perfect state, which I've already alluded to, is the flow. Okay?
Yeah.
Once you're in flow, everything sorts itself out. Now, flow is a thought creates a feeling will create an emotion, and an emotion creates the result. Basically, if you feel good things will happen. If you feel shit, bad things will happen, right? Shit things happen. That's flow. No one can argue with that, because if you know, to try and snap yourself out of a misery or whatever, it's very, very difficult. But once you do, it can be done. Don't worry about it, because, you know, an example is temporary relief. If you're worried about money and someone gives you some money, it will give you temporary relief. It won't solve the problem, because money don't solve poverty problems, and money don't solve money problems, funny enough, unless you do it properly. Okay, because there's no lesson to be learned. Okay, but flow means that, and this is something I just come up with. Funny enough, you've mentioned this, because I only worked this out the other day. Right, when we're in the flow, everything's perfect. That means it's thought, feeling, emotion, result. Right, the result will never create the emotion. Right, and that's what people are trying to do. They're trying to say, well, I'll get a big pile of money and then I'll have the emotion to go with it. But you don't, because if you want to be happy, you've only got the choice of now. You cannot store it. You can't say what's going to happen in the future. You can only have happiness now. So you're a mug if you start saying, "I'll go without now," because if you go without now, you'll never get the time back. You'll never get the feeling back of now. And when you get to where you're going, most of my clients, or a lot of my clients, the money's not a problem. Money is not their problem. The problem is there's regret from the past, and regrets are normally built by things that you don't do, right? You very rarely have regret over something you did, whether it went wrong or not. I mean, I've got no regrets over anything in my life, and I've done some major things wrong and bad things have happened, but I've got no regrets, because I'm where I want to be now. Because the lessons, the teachings were, concentrate on now. I mean, look at me, 70 years old. I winter in the sun every bloody year. I've got no money worries. Yet at 43 years old, I would skin, right? So I ain't done too bad by following these teachings. 3 years after I was skinned, right, I just followed a route to get back in business, and I'll come back to what we were talking about in a second, but this is just interesting. Once I relaxed and just followed these teachings, within 3 years, I was a major player in another industry, which was, I took sublimation printing to Australia, right? I was a major player in that industry in Australia, and in 3 years, I had bought and owned outright a factory shop warehouse in the major industrial part of Perth. Wow. From standing start, right? Yeah. So these things work, and that's the story. I don't even often very much tell that, because they're just throwaway lines, but that's what happened. I had
You see, that's really interesting, because there's another part that I've actually highlighted in the book. I'm going to read this to you, all right? So again, this is page 75. There you go. See, I'm flipping through and through.
Yeah.
Right. Start at chapter 7, which is the teachings become clearer. So many people want something for nothing. And it's certainly in my industry, I'm seeing an awful lot of business owners wanting something for nothing. But a classic example of not putting in the effort happened recently when you were on holiday. You saw a man demonstrating a magic trick with 4 rings, and you thought that you could go and do it. So you went and sort of bought the trick, and he told you it was easy. And after you bought it, he showed you how to do it. And then you've put, of course he made it look easy. And it really looked simple the way he showed me. But to do it so that it appeared to look as good as I had seen it demonstrated was going to take a lot of practice. I played half-heartedly with it for about an hour, and after a while, it went into the too hard basket. Yeah, do you still see that happening, certainly with your clients and perhaps sort of, with other businesses, where they sort of like, they know where they need to be going. It's just that, it just looks a bit too difficult. And do you know what?
But that's these teachings. If you go on to read about it, if you the next few lines, and I'm just doing this from memory,
Yeah.
would say, now, could I say that trick didn't work? No, I could only say I wasn't prepared to put any effort to make it work. That's what I say about these teachings, right?
Yeah.
I don't give a stuff. You can't tell me they don't work, because either I'm the luckiest man on earth or they work, right? There's one or the other,
Yeah.
okay? And I know that if you follow the teachings, good things happen. You become successful. Money is a byproduct to these teachings. They're not the aim. I never talk about money. Money just comes. Money will come in direct proportion to what you need if you follow these teachings. You cannot fail. But what people do, they've got the 4 rings, stand in a hotel for an hour, say it's too bleeding hard, it don't work. It does work, but you're not prepared to do it. And that's what I say to people with these teachings. No, sorry, they do work. It's like this guy that's driving me mental at the moment, right? He won't do it. He will not just stop and re-evaluate where he is, reframe where he is. And he's going, I said, so what you're going to do, you're going to carry on doing it wrong, right? Until you put things right. I see, yeah, okay. Now, how's it working for you? Right?
Oh, is it? It's not
No, it's so. But the point is that we are programmed, right? And what the whole thing that I do, and I spend my life going around just explaining to people how powerful they are. And once they change the program, they change everything. And listen, to talk about this stuff is the easiest thing in the world. It's the easiest thing in the world. All you've got to do is relax, and there's set procedures and there's set things. And I mean, I learn things every day. But at the end of the day, once you apply them, your life changes, right? But it ain't my fault if you go and buy the trick with 4 rings and only want to spend an hour in the hotel practicing, right? Don't come and tell me it don't work. Yeah. Right? Sure, because if I was prepared to maybe, he might have been doing that for 5 years to make it look that easy, right? I don't know. But the thing is, I wasn't prepared to put in that time. And that's what I say to my clients. If you're not prepared to do what you're told and expect a little bit of turmoil, what I call transitional disruption, expect a little bit of that, right? Because it'll happen. You can't have change without disruption. If you move a bloody chair in a room, there's disruption, isn't there? You moved it from one place to another, right? So it doesn't matter what the situation is. You have got in total control, right, over what happens. You decide whether you do it or you don't do it. If you don't do it how I tell you to do it, don't come and tell me it don't work, because I will point you at hundreds, possibly thousands of people that will tell you different. Because I've still got, and funny enough, one of the newest clients I've got is someone who was in my very first young entrepreneurs class 28 years ago, right? Right. And he built a business up that was turning over $1 million a month, right? Yeah. This is a quick story, but a true story. $1 million a month. And the 2 lessons here, he took me into the factory. He said, Croz, you're coming out. He said, I'm at 700,000 a month and I can't go no further. This was 2 years ago when I was back in Australia. So I went in and I said to him, I said, look, it was like a nightmare. It was just, everyone was doing their own thing. Everything was all over the place. The warehouse was terrible. I said, well, the reason you can't grow it is, why would you want to go and increase this headache? All you've got here is a giant headache. So your mind will not let you grow it any bigger, because all you're growing in your head is a bigger problem, and your mind won't let you do that. Tidy up the warehouse. I'll come and talk to the staff and get things sorted out. Within 3 months, he went from 700,000 to $1 million a month, just by that simple process of the mindset of him now saying it was working. But then he got it all sorted out, and a big unscrupulous bloke in Australia, and unfortunately Australia's full of unscrupulous people. But this guy used to go and buy businesses. If he had a business in the same thing, he'd go and buy businesses, take them out, or invest in them and take them out so that it give him the market share for himself. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. So this bloke's gone in and invested in his business, and then turned around and says, right, I want my money back. And we said, then he's put him into bankruptcy. Now, this kid's only 40 years old, right? He's not 40, I bet about that 43, 44, youngster. Anyway, but he's now lost his company once again, and he's now trying to make everything happen. He's come to me, knows my story. He said, Croz, I couldn't think of no one else who would get me back in the game. He come to me just before Christmas. Nothing. All this had happened. So we've gone through a little plan, this, that, and the other, right? Mm-hmm. He's now invented an app for his fitters. It's in solar heating, like, solar panels on the roofs. He's invented an app whereby when the geezer's fitted all the stuff, he fills the form in on the app, which goes direct to the government. 2 days later, they get the payment. The government grant comes into their bank, right? That's all done by the business cat. All the admin staff, he's done it. We've created all this in 3 months. He's now booked up a month ahead. And I said to him, your business that you had before will look tiny to what you're going to have in a year's time. But you know what? The only thing that we had to do to start with?
What?
Relax him.
Yep.
And let him know. And let him know that there's a future, because most depression and stress is caused by not knowing where you're going. When you've got hope, you can always change how you feel. When you haven't got hope, that's when despair sets in, right? And a lot of people, I used to work with a lot of doctors in Australia, whereby, they're giving them all these bloody pills and Prozac. I said, no, what they need is hope. Once they think they're going to be able to get a few quid down the track, all of a sudden everything changes. But you've only got to change your mindset and have that belief in it's going to happen, and everything changes. And the whole thing is, see, I study this every day. I look at different people, and why does that happen? And I've just done that bit coming back. Now, this is how, look, me 70-year-old head still works. We said about when looking into the future,
yeah,
right, and trying to have it. You're doing it the wrong way. When you look to the future to be happy, it goes against the flow. Keep mentioning the flow. Listen, it's all so simple when you talk about it. But if you're going into the future with a result, trying to create the emotion, you're going the wrong way, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because the emotion creates the result. So what you're doing is you're going against the flow. That's where the bloody problems start and the headaches start, because you're going against the flow. There's a natural flow to everything. And once you're in it, you can't fail. It's like a leaf floating down a stream, and it sees a log. It don't sort of go, oh, a log, I'll go and get wedged behind that. What's it do? The water's going round it nice and calm, isn't it? And it just flows around it. And that's how life is, if you allow it to be like that. But you see, everyone says, I'll just keep doing it wrong a little bit longer, right? Until I put things right.
It's very true, man. I could talk to you for hours. And look, guys, if you want to go and find out more about Croz, go and have a look at his website. It's
which is rubbish, by the way. Because I don't care.
He don't care. But any really brilliant website designers out there that want to help him, please do get in touch. It's www.croz.uk.com. You can buy his book on there. Genuinely, it is a bit of a game changer if you are an entrepreneur that's just struggling that little bit and you just want that different approach, that different perspective, and from a guy that has been there and done it. And that is the whole point of these podcasts. This is not spend a shed load of money, go and spend 5,000 quid and go and stand in Wembley Arena and rah and dance and shout and holler and hoop. This is a case of, look, this is a 10 quid book. This is a 10 quid book that you can pick up from the website, and trust me, it will start changing your mindset. But you can also get in touch with Croz via his website. Go follow him on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'll put all the links on the show notes. But live from South Africa, Croz, thank you so much. It really has been a fantastic chat. Thank you, my friend.
Lovely. And if anyone wants to join on like Facebook, mention this podcast if you want to friend up. And I'll
Lovely. Great stuff.
Friendship.
Croz,
lovely talking to you, mate.
Cheers. Thank you, buddy. Told you I wasn't going to do an awful lot of talking in that, didn't I? But I tell you what, it's some absolutely fantastic knowledge bombs and just a slightly different way of looking at success and looking at failure in business and how you can turn that around. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure once again. Look, if you want to get in touch, please do so. Come to the website, www.markford.uk. On the front, you'll see it says sign up to the newsletter. You sign up to that and I will give you a free 20-day business coaching challenge, which will hopefully make you think about stuff in your business, hopefully make you money and save you money and all that sort of stuff. But come and find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those sorts of places. And also I will put all the show links for Croz's stuff in there as well. Until next time, go out, be bloody brilliant, and I will see you very soon.
Shh, don't tell anyone, but you're listening to the best kept business secret and his podcast, dedicated to helping you understand the successful business secrets that others don't want you to know, making no secret of success.